The torque strut or front control arm connects the steering knuckle, yellow arrow, to the front section of the subframe, red arrow. If you are just replacing the rubber bushing at the end of the cross frame, you may not need to remove the entire strut, but just loosen it. From the cross member, drop it down and press it out. Mercedes uses a special hydraulic portable press, and I was not able to press it out from the strut with the bearing removal tool I had, so I removed the complete torque strut. If you are following these instructions, you are replacing the complete strut or pressing it out with a press. Use a 16mm socket on the large E-torque bolt, red arrow, and a 21mm wrench and remove the mounting hardware from the strut to cross member. Mercedes uses a special hydraulic portable press to replace the bushing bearing, and I was not able to press it out from the strut with the bearing removal tools I had, so I removed the complete strut. If you're looking at a press set like this, you're probably going to have to take the whole strut out as well. Begin by removing the brake caliper. Hang them safely out of the way. The caliper mounts, rotor, and the sensor wiring. Please see our article and video on these procedures for additional assistance by following the link at the end of this video. Next, you will need to remove the wheel hub and bearing, red arrow, from the spindle on the knuckle, yellow arrow. Again, please see our articles and videos on these procedures for additional instruction by following the link at the end of this video. Use an E10 torque and remove the 3 fasteners, red arrows, holding the dust shield in place, and then remove the shield. There is an ABS speed sensor in the knuckle that needs to be removed by using a 10mm wrench from behind, yellow arrow, and then pulling the sensor, red arrow, out from the back of the knuckle. Remove the tie rod by inserting a T30 torque in the top of the tie rod stud, yellow arrow, and then use a 21mm wrench to remove the nut, red arrow. Ball joints are held in place with a surprising amount of force, and while you can whack away at the top of the joint with a hammer, you really run the risk of bending and/or damaging part of the suspension. Make sure to use the proper tool. A ball joint separator, red arrow, will make quick and easy work of separating the joint. Note, please do not get any part of yourself around the joint when separating, as it has a tendency to let go with substantial force. You should also, as always, be wearing eye protection while doing this, or any other projects on your car. Even though you have removed the tie rod ball joint, you may want to leave it loosely in the knuckle while you remove the other nuts. The torque strut control arm has a ball joint, red arrow, on the end that attaches to the steering knuckle with a nut on the bottom. Use an E14 and remove the 2 E14 bolts connecting the rear of the knuckle to the strut, red arrow, one shown. Next, use a 16mm socket on the large E-torque bolt, yellow arrow, and a 21mm socket and remove the top nut from the knuckle to strut, red arrow. Use a ball joint separator to separate the torque strut from the steering knuckle, red arrow. Support the weight of the steering knuckle with a jack once you have the control arm off, and use care not to scratch or damage the spindle, yellow arrow. If you are replacing the complete control arm, installation is the reverse of removal, and do not forget that you will need to get the alignment done on the vehicle. If you are pressing out the old bearing and a new one in, begin by placing the new bearing in the freezer overnight. The same constriction caused by freezing the bearing will help when it comes time to press it in. Take the arm to your press and press out the old bearing and press the new one in. Remember, you must support the underside of the arm with a tool strong enough to support the pressure from the press, red arrow, and you will need a socket large enough to allow the bearing to pass through the opening in the control arm, yellow arrow. It takes a lot of pressure to remove and install these, so make sure you are taking all the safety precautions, again like safety glasses, keeping your body away from pinch points, and making sure everything in the press is level and the forces are even. Installation is the reverse of removal, and you will need to get the vehicle's alignment checked after you are finished. Thanks for watching. Click here to view the original article along with hundreds of other DIY content for your car.